Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, whether or not you enjoyed The Acolyte or not is completely and totally irrelevant to the fact that the show is an absolutely, by the numbers, a failure. It's got some of the worst ratings we've seen out of Disney Star Wars in a very long time, and it's only like the second least watched show of all time, and it actually had like lightsabers and all this other kind of stuff in it that you would think would normally draw in the Star Wars fans, and it also is currently recently dropped off of all of the rating situations too, and not to mention what they did to the canon of Star Wars with the entire show and everything else that of course obviously upset a lot of the fans. Well, boys and girls, we know it is not very likely that this will end up seeing a second season. We've heard the rumor mills going around for a while now talking about that. According to Burbank, they want Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm to shift back to Luke because Luke sells toys, Luke sells all of this other kind of stuff. So as of right now, it does not look like it's going to get a second season. Even Lesley Hedland herself has come out and said that she has not gotten any kind of green light whatsoever. Well, boys and girls, she is out there begging, absolutely on her hands and knees, begging any of the pixie dusters out there that enjoyed this show, that snorted it right up their nose, and are out there just worshiping the cult out of every single situation. Well, she knows things are not going well. She knows the Disney executives are not happy with the results, and now she is out there in a desperate attempt to try to convince anyone and everyone out there to go out there and push for more of this absolute hot garbage because, ladies and gentlemen, even she knows things are not going well behind the scenes, and she is out there in desperation. So the Acolyte showrunner, Lesley Hedland, says fans who want a second season should encourage your friends to watch the show and recommends telling skeptics, don't pay attention to the IMDb score because, yes, boys and girls, she is very well aware, as well as everyone else in Disney, that this show has been an absolute audience reception failure, and they can blame review bombing all they want. We have never been able to prove any kind of evidence of that because every time they try to go, wow, it's just a bunch of racist or sexist, all we have to do is point to movies like Creed and other female-led shows and movies and stuff like this and go, oh, yeah, well, where's all the review bombing for those at? Why is it just your guys' hot garbage with really poor storytelling that ends up being the kind of stuff that's just getting review bombed? It's kind of weird how that ends up being their same old excuse, as always, that continues to fall flat. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to check out this article from Boundington Comics, give you all of the juicy details of exactly what this insane woman is out there saying in a desperate attempt to give herself any kind of relevancy in the future of Star Wars, and go ahead and get her clear path to completely and totally destroy the character of Plagueis. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe and or follow if you have not already, because we have just crossed 800 on Rumble and YouTube both, and we are sailing our way towards 900, and I could not do that without every single one of you. Also, leave us a comment down in the comment section down below, letting us know what you think about Lesley Hedland's desperate attempt to convince people out there to try to indoctrinate even more people into believing this show is actually good, when we all know at the end of the day it is absolute hot garbage, and it is a waste of some incredibly talented actors and actresses out there, boys and girls. So with the disastrous Star Wars series, future still uncertain, showrunner Lesley Hedland says that online support will be the deciding factor in whether or not The Acolyte receives a second season. Hedland issued her internet call to arms while speaking to Collider's Maggie Lovitt following the premiere of the series' first season finale. And here's the funny part, boys and girls. This is not the first time anybody involved with a Disney series out there has actually had, after a disastrous dumpster fire of a failure, has tried to do this before. We'll document it here in a little bit and show you off that, but this is not Obi-Wan. This is exactly the same thing that happened with the Obi-Wan series as well. So asked by the host if there was anything that fans could do to help sway the minds at Disney to renew The Acolyte, honestly, there's probably not, because at the end of the day, 2 + 2 still equals 4, and the math just doesn't work. The Acolyte is a dog that does not hunt, boys and girls. The showrunner asserted, truly any online support and love you can send the show. It's a little tricky because of the way the internet works. But if you enjoyed the show and you want to see more of the story, any support that you can give the show on social media platforms would be super helpful. So basically what you're saying out there is all of the shills that Disney has paid for so long to have their early access and their access for them to end up being access media. well, they're just not cutting the turns. It doesn't matter what that review, that actual critics, quote unquote, critic score is over there on Rotten Tomatoes, because at the end of the day, nobody trusts that anymore. People really legitimately only trust the audience score, because really, if it was all about review bombing, it was all about this other kind of stuff. Explain Guardians of the Galaxy and how that did absolutely so well up there and got a really great audience score and had a lot of return viewers, which clearly the Acolyte is not going to get. So clearly they already know all of this kind of stuff, and they know it's not going to work out there. Sending love to the cast, too. You've seen what Hayden Christensen went through. He's getting the love now, but loving if you enjoyed the performances. Hayden Christensen? Now, if she's talking about the original actor, whose name I can't even remember right now, who got a lot of crap for being the little Anakin out there and went through an absolute abysmal take rate, that's the case. But I don't really remember Hayden Christensen getting anything other than a lot of love. Maybe back when the movies were initially brought out, there was a segment of the Star Wars population that weren't a big fan of them. But at the exact same time, how would you have known this? Right? Because it wasn't social media back then. It wasn't the fans that were out there giving Hayden Christensen a bunch of shit. It was people like you, Lesley Hedland, and the people you have currently paid off, the quote-unquote critics, the professionals out there that were actually doing all of that kind of stuff and were out there doing that. The fans, for the most part, yeah, some were a little divided. They didn't look good. But people like me and the newer generation, I loved those movies. I absolutely enjoyed every aspect of that. I loved Hayden Christensen. Were there some silly, quirky lines? Yeah, of course. But at the end of the day, the only hate and disdain that Hayden Christensen or any of the Star Wars people out there got to at the time was from you out there in the media, not the fans. So don't blame the fans now, the fact that we actually have a voice, because guess what? All of those movies still have an insanely higher score than The Acolyte, the lowest audience score of any Star Wars property out there, mind you. He's getting the love now, but get the love now if you enjoy the performances, even if you were like kind of like whatever on the show. So she even admits that if the show wasn't good, please tell everybody to watch it anyway, because certain actors make it worthwhile. Well, trust me, there's some certain actors in there that are really good. But even Lee Jung-jae wasn't enough to keep me wanting to go back and watch the show every single episode, even though I thought he was a great actor, because once again, the storytelling ruined and trashed what otherwise would have been a beautiful performance. And guess what, Lesley Hedland? The only person you have to blame for that is yourself. Even if they were kind of like whatever on the show, if you enjoyed the performances, get on the social media. Let them know that you love them, or that you support them, or that their performances were great. Well, boys and girls, even as someone who has been highly critical of everything Disney Star Wars and generally everything Disney entirely, I absolutely did. I have made 2 videos praising some of the actors involved in The Acolyte. I've also roasted plenty of the rest of you all that are involved, because guess what? Every individual should be judged based on their individual characteristics, and that's exactly what I did. Unlike everybody in Hollywood and everybody out there in the cult, of course, as usual. As to what specific actions such online support would entail, Hedland recommended, encourage your friends to watch the show. A lot of my work has been word of mouth. We're talking about the review bombing, so just tell people don't pay attention to the IMDb score. Yes, don't pay attention to what other people out there, just like you, might have actually thought about the show. No, instead, pay attention to your sycophant friends, you know, the ones always posting all of the articles on your Facebook, praising all of the things that you know are completely and totally insane. Yes, let's listen to those people and not the literal entire rest of Western civilization, America, and every other Star Wars fan out there who went out of their way and out of their time and spent their own effort to go and actually let you know what they thought about the show and their honest opinion out there. Yes, boys and girls, she's wanting you to once again ignore what your lying eyes tell you and believe that it is actually good. Believe your friends that are in the cult that it's actually good. Yeah, that's going to work out well. It usually comes up that way, as opposed to going online and saying, I love this show. So if you did love the show, then pivot and appreciate it. And yes, she says in here, Lee Jung-jae is an awesome actor. I completely agree with you. He was one of the only decent parts about this entire show. Unfortunately, he had you as a showrunner and a storyteller. Drawing her thoughts on the matter to a close, Hedland ultimately affirmed, By the way, I know this is already happening, even though I'm not online. People have been sending me fun tweets and beautiful artwork and all of the ship comments, and I'm absolutely loving it. I know it's out there, but if you aren't doing it, I would encourage you to do it and support the show. So thank you. Yes, please. Even though she's not online, which explains a whole lot about being insulated inside of the bubble. It actually reminds me of another actor, David Tennant, but that's a video for another day. Literally, it's the exact same thing. She lives inside of a bubble. She's admitting that she lives inside of the Hollywood bubble and gets no inside input except from the sycophants around her. And, I don't know, probably her Disney bosses that go, your show's an absolute abysmal failure and you're not getting a second season. So thanks for playing. Thanks for being here. But please don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. We don't want to have to sanitize it on your way out the door. Like, literally, that's what she knows what's going on. It's not going to happen. This show is not going to end up getting a second season. And like I said earlier, this has already happened before. Obi-Wan Kenobi star Ewan McGregor, which I absolutely love, Ewan McGregor, once again got completely and totally screwed over by Disney Star Wars as well. Said, can everyone write to Disney? If you just give them some email addresses at the end, just say, dear Disney, let's have another. Let's have a bit more Obi-Wan Kenobi series. And honestly, all of us completely and totally believe this was just because he understood how abysmally bad the show was, how much it screwed up his own character and his own lore inside of the Star Wars series, and he would love to come back and try to fix it. Whether or not that'll absolutely ever happen, God only knows. But at the end of the day, we know for a fact that the Acolyte, beyond a shadow of a doubt, unless the Walt Disney Company just wants to completely and totally burn billions of dollars, and none of the rumors we're hearing out of WW Pro, who has an incredible track record, are true, which honestly, boys and girls, more often than not, Pro, actually 95 to 96% of the time, Pro is right. I'd imagine Acolyte is never going to get a season 2. And honestly, that's probably the best thing for the majority of you out there. Now, people like me who make videos over this kind of stuff and roast it, absolutely, by all means, give me a second season. Give it to me. Let me continue to roast, make fun of you, laugh at you, and shame you all into oblivion. But boys and girls, I think we would overall be better as a culture, be better as Star Wars fans, be better overall in general if this show never got a second season. If we never got to see Lesley Hedland damage Plagueis and Palpatine like we know she would want to be. Like we know she would do. Like we know she would absolutely do beyond a shadow of a doubt. And she'd do it for her own purposes, for her own agenda. There is no doubt about me that if she ended up going on with the second season, that Plagueis, just like our dear sweet Beardo and so many others out there have said, Plagueis and Palpatine would end up being gay lovers. Because that's all this woman knows how to write, is this kind of insanity. I mean, literally, the entire story of the series was surrounded by two lesbian witches that did something before Palpatine, or before Plagueis did it, before Palpatine even tried it. And, of course, ended up now, they're the first to do it, and not Plagueis, and not Palpatine, and not Anakin. Anakin is not the first now. No, these are the first Force-born children. So, color us shocked that Star Wars fans are upset that your ratings are in the toilet, that no one's watching your show, and it's the lowest audience score of any, not just Disney Star Wars, of any Star Wars property of all time. Lesley Hedland, you did this to yourself, and your desperate attempts to beg people to watch this show and encourage their friends to it, I promise you, will fall on deaf ears. If the Lord is good and willing, Lesley Hedland, your time is done inside of Star Wars, and for the love of God, let it be done in all of Hollywood. But hey, boys and girls, we know these fools just fail up, now don't we?